Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sustain the Trail podcast. I'm your co host, Tyler,
And I'm your other co host, Becca.
and we're excited to be back after many weeks of technical difficulties, switching platforms, life things happening. Uh, there was a bit of there was a couple wrenches thrown into our regularly scheduled programming, but we're back, and we're super excited to be here with you guys today. Before we dive into our topic, I do want to take a second to thank our presenting sponsors, Take a Hike Retail Shop and Open Trail Collective. Both amazing friends of ours, and we're really excited to have them on board as presenting sponsors for our podcast.
Thank you, sponsors. Woohoo!
So, with that out of the way, we're going to talk about Leave No Trace principles and what is so hard about Leave No Trace for common people to understand.
Such an important topic, Tyler.
Really is. I feel like we both have had our fair share of things that kind of grind our gears a little bit when we're out in nature. But I do think as much as we might go into little rants about things here and there throughout this episode, I think the bigger part of it is just educating the broader public about Leave No Trace and how important it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Obviously, as an educator, education is huge. But yeah, I think what I really appreciate is when I travel, I will often do some research for the place that I'm going to go. And if it entails any kind of outdoor activity like hiking, I usually find that the city, town will have some information. And I noticed the one time I went to Bend, they had on their, visitor center webpage or whatever, they had a whole like list, like this is what Leave No Trace looks like. And if you read all of this and do these things, if you come into our visitor center, we'll give you some really cool stickers, So I just felt like that right there is such a great way to make sure that the people who are newer, right, to outdoor adventuring understand the information. They get the information, right, so that then they can do
Abs-
better because it is all about education.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been a couple parks, both national parks and national forests that I've been to. They have these like little like Leave No Trace cards that they'll sometimes hand
Yeah,
out.
like laminated cards.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah,
I'll take
very
a
cool.
bunch and I'll bring them home and then pass them out to people while I'm at the trail here in Ohio. I live just a stone's throw away from Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And so if I see people, I and we strike conversation, I'll just give them one of those, and hopefully that inspires them to leave no trace.
Yes.
So the first principle of leave no trace is plan ahead and prepare. Why would you say that that is important?
Well, my take on that is like that's the most important one because if you're preparing for whatever you're doing, and like that goes back to the whole Bend trip, right? When I went to Bend, I knew that I wanted to be doing some hiking and was researching trails and stuff in the area, and the town city of Bend is like, "Oh, we are known for, outdoor adventures, so let's make sure that the people, right, are aware and they can plan and prepare for the things that they want to do here, right? So, right, if you're going to be in the water, you need to have. I mean, there's like legal requirements for getting on a paddleboard or getting into a kayak and jumping into water. So, do you have those legal requirements? Do you have a PFD to keep you safe? Do you, know how to maneuver in and out of the kayak safely, etc. So planning ahead and preparing is going to be a big part of preventing things that you haven't envisioned if you haven't planned, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think a big one for me when it comes to going out is weather. I'm always keeping an eye on the weather, even if I'm not planning on going out hiking or anything like that. I'm always watching the weather. I'm one of those nerdy dudes that loves watching the radars. Um, and so you should really know the weather during the time that you're going to be out there, whether it's, quick afternoon hike or overnights back, like backpack in, backpack out, or even a couple day sprint. You should know the weather and, plan and prepare accordingly. Have the proper gear, have a rain jacket, have some warm layers, have extra dry socks, extra, this and that. I think that is extremely important. And another aspect to the plan ahead and prepare is, if you don't plan ahead and prepare, you might be faced with an emergency decision that could cost you a lot of money here in the US, given that healthcare is not free. Um, you could put, if you're not prepared with like a Garmin InReach or some type of device that has satellite messaging and you have no cell phone service, like, you might be SOL.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. So, here in California, we have this really big mountain. It's called Mount Whitney. You might have heard of it. And lots of hikers like to summit that mountain, and it is a dream of mine as well. But there's been at least 3 deaths in the last, 4 or 5 months because they're going up there unprepared, thinking that they know what they're doing, and they end up in a situation that they can't get themselves out of. So it could take it technically it's life or death, in those situations. So we got to prepare.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there just a few weeks ago, there was somebody that died in Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I never ended up finding out what the cause of death was, but it
Hmm.
very much seems like they got injured during a hike and weren't prepared. And the unfortunate part about that is Cuyahoga Valley National Park. There are very few places in the park that don't have cell service, or I can't think of a single place within that national park that doesn't have at least one bar of cell phone service.
Nice.
So that it does it could be a nefarious, cause of death or something, but that's not the
Right.
first time that that's happened, and it doesn't have to be a mountainous park. It can be a relatively flat park, and something could still happen. So you definitely want to make sure
Yeah.
you have everything that you need. But that's also going to say you don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on the best gear. Like, you have a rain jacket already, just take the rain jacket. Like, you don't need fancy gear to go out and enjoy nature.
Yeah. Very true.
The next one is travel and camp on durable surfaces. And that is very important, not only for a good night's sleep, um, but also you don't want to be in a situation where there's rock slide or avalanche, or uh, God forbid your where you laid your tent is a little off center or off, level, and you have a puddle of water underneath you if
Right.
it starts raining in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah, I think right. This kind of just goes. There's all kinds of like I guess there's all kinds of surfaces that we could end up, when I think about this one, I think a little bit about, when we go hiking on trails that have recently had some rain, right? Like we do want to be careful to not damage too much of the trail, but also not damage also the the areas around the trail. So, right, like when you go to BLM land, there are not like real obvious areas where you're supposed to set up camp, I guess, right? But I think that, I guess the way that I view Leave No Trace is just like treat others the way you would want to be treated. And that goes for the earth as well. Like, do we want to put our tent on this nice moss? Well, that might be a little bit more comfortable to sleep on, but then that we're killing off a plant, right? So I'm sure there's another area that's you know, a more stable surface that isn't going to damage our tent or material, and is better for the environment. So just be respectful of the spaces that you're in, I feel like.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the one thing that stands out to me with that principle is trail widening. You kind of touched on it
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah, we talked about that last time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will thank my former boss, Ralph, who was my boss when I worked at Cleveland Metro Parks, building trails, for
Hmm.
educating me about why it's important to not widen the trail when it's muddy. Is and
Yeah.
it's equally as important to not damage the trail if it's super muddy, but especially
Right.
if it's muddy, you don't want to go around the mud and widen that trail. You're outside, you're
Right.
gonna get dirty. Just walk through the
Yeah.
mud. It's
Just
that's
go through the mud.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so that is one that grinds my gears, and I have been known a time or two to politely tell people not to do that while I'm
Correct
hiking,
people.
uh, as politely as I can in that moment. But yeah, I think I guess another part of it is, and maybe this is a later step too, so we might have to touch on it again, but not having fires at places that have fire warnings or designated no fire areas. I know that's a big thing out in the West, out by you, where there's big
Yeah.
parts of the parks that you can't have campfires at. So if you can't have a campfire, don't have one.
Don't have a fun. Yeah. So yeah. So that's kind of leads me to a fun story where I was doing. I went to one of those outsider together events, and it was in Big Sur, and we were camping in an area we would call it BLM land, right? But typical of Big Sur, number one, there's often a lot of fire restrictions because it is, there can be fires there very easily. There's lots of foliage, lots of big trees to catch fire. But there's also homes, right? So this place that you can camp, there's houses kind of interspersed all around the camping area, and it is somebody's road to their home, right? That you're on, and when it gets busy, and Big Sur is a very popular place, and so it gets busy. Um, Residents have to deal with people, who are going up there to party, not really to enjoy nature, but they're just trying to find a free party space. Um, and pretty much when we were there for this outsiders event, there had to have been at least 25 people camping in this area. Um, there's a big, like, when construction has those signs on the side of the freeway that's like, slow down, lane closure, or whatever, those really big, flashing signs. Big flashing sign at the bottom of the road that says no fires allowed, 4x4 only. And you've got these Priuses trying to drive up this mountain, and some of them were the outsiders people, some of them were also other people, but multiple groups of them, because they all kind of set up shop in little areas, had fires, even though it said no fires. They were super loud and obnoxious till 2 in the morning, even though there was houses all around. And then at one point, this one gentleman that was there had a really big, like, almost like a military vehicle that he turned into a van life vehicle for himself. And they stopped it in the middle of the road, got a bunch of people up on top of it so that they could do a fun drone video of them all. But they were literally blocking the whole, like, it was just everything. Leave no time. Like, do you guys even know how to exist out here? So I hung out for one day, and that was kind of my straw. Like, you guys are children that need to have a mother around, and I'm not it. I'm
I'm
out.
not I'm not your mama. Get you a shirt that
Exactly.
says that. No, we've briefly talked about that experience, and that grinds my gears. I'm not gonna sit here and drag anybody personally, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna drag
Oh, totally.
outsiders
I
together.
mean, and it goes to that education. They're just young kids wanting to have fun, not thinking that they're in somebody's backyard,
Right,
right?
but as much as I don't want to drag anybody or any group per se, and they're young. We've all been there, you know. I'm 32. I
Right.
was young
Yeah.
once. Uh,
Right.
I think about that, and it does irk me quite a bit, especially when there's a big, bright, blinking sign that says "No fires."
Sign.
Like
Exactly.
how many wildfires in the last 5 years have happened because somebody had a fire where they weren't supposed to, or God forbid they were having a birth reveal party that went wrong. If you remember that one, I think that was
Yeah.
more
Yes,
than
I
a
do.
couple years
Yeah, that was
ago, but
crazy.
like it doesn't
Hmm.
take much for a wildfire to start. And you're not only damaging
Yeah.
the areas that people like to frequent and hike, you're also damaging the ecosystem that resides within that area. You're displacing
Yeah, and all the
animals.
wildlife that
Yeah,
exactly.
so I guess, not to drag anybody, I have my own thoughts on Outsiders Together. Some are good, some are not, but I
Same. Yeah.
just be responsible outside. Like, just be responsible.
Yeah.
I do think that the this next principle actually probably can also go in tandem with that experience that you had at Big Sur, which is dispose of waste
Yes.
properly.
Yes. Lots of floating toilet paper. And I'm just like, what? Like, do you not know? That's like pretty basic. I feel like that's one of the most basic leave no trace principles is like, if you pack it in, you pack it out. That includes your poop.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. And if there is
yeah,
no way to pack it out, dig a hole that's at least minimum at like the smallest amount, at least 6 inches deep and 6 inches wide,
right.
and then
Yeah.
bury it. And then you put a stick or something signifying like, "Hey, I pooped here,"
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something.
There's something here.
Um, yeah, you pack in. If
Yeah.
you
It's,
pack it in, you pack it out, and that goes for bodily waste, goes for trash, food scraps. Like
mm-hmm.
the amount of
Yeah.
times I've had to confront somebody about leaving orange peels on the trail, and their response is, "Oh, it'll degrade. It's totally fine. It's natural."
It's,
It's
yeah.
not. It doesn't belong there. We don't
Yeah.
grow oranges in Ohio. That is not
Right.
natural. Um,
Right.
toilet
Exactly.
paper is one of the things on the list that you just talked about. That's huge too.
Yep.
Um, but we
Yep.
we pre-show we're talking briefly about dog
Yep.
waste,
Yes.
and
Yeah, my fun story. So it is a huge pet peeve of many of us to find a bag of dog poop in a in a plastic bag tied hanging out on the side of the trail, and I've always gotten upset when I see that. Even I mean, I have dogs. I'm a huge dog person, um, but I've always been very responsible with my dogs. Right, always bag their poop and take it with me. There was one time though that I was mentioning earlier, right, where I went on a trail with my shepherd, and it was probably an 8 or 9 mile trail, and she crapped the first mile. And so I bagged it and left it, told myself super easy to just pick it up on my way back. I'll kind of put it somewhere where hopefully nobody sees it, but I'll know that it's there. There's like a tree, and that's kind of my marker. I'll grab it on my way to the car. And I couldn't find it. Walked up and down that mile section 2 or 3 times. And I was so mad at myself for months that like I just won't now. I take it with me. I just bring an extra bag that I can throw used, you know, poop bags
yeah,
in
yeah, and I mean, tie
instead
it to the
of
back of your backpack so it's not right in front of your face. I mean, you don't want to put it
right.
in
Yeah,
your backpack. You
you can
could.
tie it to the leash.
Yeah, exactly.
I usually tie it to the leash. Yeah,
That's actually really smart.
if you tie it to the leash, it'll yeah.
Yeah, that is probably my biggest gripe, and my girlfriend, she's probably heard me complain about it a time or two. is seeing bags of poop on the side of the trail. But I'm not talking like in your situation, I understand, but you also learned your lesson. So I'm not,
I learned my lesson,
yeah.
and I don't.
But the ones
Yeah.
that I typically see are like they've been there for a while. And that
Yes.
drives me crazy. So it's like, first off, if you have a dog and you're walking it and it poops, clean up the poop and take it out with you. But if you don't have a bag,
Hmm.
I'm not saying this
Right.
is the perfectly acceptable thing to do. Kick it into the grass. If you have a bag, carry it out. But
Right.
don't put the poop in a bag and then just leave it on the side of the trail because that won't
Yeah.
decompose.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Like, mm, mm. It's too late in the evening for me to get angry about things, but
Uh,
And then the next one is leave what you find. And I think we're all a little bit guilty of maybe not following this one. Like
Absolutely.
there's
I totally
there's been
agree
a
with
few
that.
rocks that I'm like, I can't leave this one behind. Like this one just feels special.
Right.
And that's how I ended up with two shoe boxes full of
Yes.
rocks. But yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that's hard for me because I mean, I've spent my whole life as a child going to beaches and collecting shells. And while some shells are harmless to take home, many should stay because they're actually still homes for other creatures. You know, and so now, like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard sometimes, especially when you find that special little rock, rock in the shape of a heart, or but I guess I just have told myself, like, this is that heart rock might like heal somebody as they're walking through this trail like super depressed, and so again, I take myself out of the equation and say this is for me to enjoy for this moment, but not for a lifetime.
yeah. How do you feel about cairns or rock stacks?
I mean, they're annoying. Obviously, they serve a purpose in some situations, right? So people do use them to help signify parts of a trail, but then there are also people who just create them. And so then the people who just create them make it confusing for those of us who are actually looking for ones that might be indicating a trail change, or um, so in that sense, again, we should just enjoy what we see and not mess with it.
Absolutely. And it's like rock stacks especially are also super damaging to micro ecosystems. Like we have the Cuyahoga River here, some waterfalls and stuff, and I'll go to Blue Hen Falls, which is one of the more popular like out and back trails that leads to a
Trails.
waterfall here in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and there'll be rock stacks all along the riverbed, and I'll go through and I'll kick them all
Mm,
off, like kick them down, because like it's so bad. Like
yeah.
first, if it doesn't serve a purpose,
Mm,
like guiding as a direction, don't do it. It doesn't
hmm.
look cool. It hurts
Exactly.
the micro ecosystem that relies on those rocks and the pebbles and all the different things. There's salamanders that hide under those types of things. So it's like just don't do it. But in
Exactly.
terms of trail direction, they do serve a purpose, but only if they're intentionally placed. You don't need a
Exactly.
trail with 40 cairns on it, all very close together. Like you just don't. Just,
Yeah, I will say there's only been one time that I have been on a trail where a cairn stock stack was useful to directions and making sure that we made it to made the turn kind of
I
thing.
I don't
Otherwise, they have been just man-made kind of
yeah,
nuisances.
I don't think I've ever encountered a cairn that was intentionally placed.
Was
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just But on the last point of like taking something, so like rocks or antlers or flowers or something like that, people will make the statement it's just one. But then you multiply that by every person doing it, that's not just one.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a this thing I think I posted recently on my Instagram, the super bloom. So we get every couple of years we get this wildflower super bloom in this area called the Carrizo Plains. It's in my county here, and people will drive all the way from LA to come see it. Like it can be, it's pretty amazing. But you know, you've got all of those social media people who really just want to stand in the middle of a wildflower field, and they're just trampling the wildflowers and holding up, you know, bouquets of them. And it's like, no, people,
Don't do
like
that.
that thing is alive, and
That thing can feel.
you just
How would you like it if
exactly.
we just plucked one of your arms off? You know, like that might be
There
a
you
little bit of
go.
an exaggeration or like an extreme example, but
Yeah, extreme view. Yeah, it is. But it's just, you know, people just need to
exactly,
think before they act. That's all.
exactly. So we're actually gonna touch base on campfires again because the fifth principle is minimize campfire impacts, but that goes beyond having fires in a no fire zone. So some of the things here are fires are
Yeah,
optional, and then uh,
yeah.
fire scars.
I struggle with that one because I do love like the vibe of a fire, right? Like there's just something about going camping and doing your little fire. Of course, you know, I had kids and I we would s'mores and you know all that kind of stuff. Um but now that I'm, you know, an individual that goes out by myself, there are definitely times where it's just like, well, a fire is a lot of work, number one. Number two, I'm adventuring until I'm ready to pass out. So like, you know, why do the fire? But yeah, and there's also that whole process of like firewood. Like if you are going to do a fire, you know, a lot of times you want to burn local firewood. You don't want to like buy firewood in California and drive to Colorado and burn it because you might be burning, you know, some sort of invasive bug or disease into the air, and you know, so being smart about that is important.
Absolutely, yeah, and like fire scars, those last for decades. You know,
Yep.
disposing of or like properly managing, you know, the coal and the debris of the fire after the fact is also a pretty big thing. And neither
Yeah.
of us are sitting here saying don't have campfires, and we're not saying don't do anything bad or don't do anything at all when you're in nature because of these principles. The principles are here to educate you on the proper way to do things and to think a little bit more beyond just that temporary little bit of fun. Like fire bans aren't arbitrary,
Yes, exactly.
and just be smart, you know? Like uh, think a little bit beyond that temporary fun that you're going to have and the impacts that it can have on other people wanting to enjoy the same experience that you've had. Um and but also take it out of the out of the zoom or lens of people and think about the environment that the animals live in and the ecosystem around you lives in.
Exactly.
um so yeah, I mean, you can have fires, just do it responsibly. Don't be a big group of
Exactly.
people having fires in a no fire zone. Don't leave half burned logs on the ground, and don't don't have fires in a canopied area where fire scars can happen and damage that tree for the rest of the rest of its existence.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, a fire is a permanent, you know, damage to an area. So definitely want to be very careful with fires.
Absolutely. Um, it's getting a bit repetitive now, just because the last two we've kind of already touched on in certain other aspects. But I do think maybe
Right.
spending a little bit more time on the sixth principle, which is respecting wildlife, is actually important. There's a lot of people. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people out there don't really give much mind to the creatures and critters that live among us in their land. And so
Yeah, I
why
agree.
is respecting wildlife important to you?
Well, well, first off, like I mentioned in our very first episode, the reason why I love nature is because I lived part of my childhood in Montana, and a lot of that was interacting with, not interacting, but wildlife was all around you. It's hard to miss out there, right? So we would drive through Yellowstone National Park and see, hordes of bison and tons of elk and bears, and of course deer, and all of those things. And kind of going back to the fire part just a little bit, when I lived out there, I want to say it was in the 80s, maybe it was early 90s. Yellowstone National Park had a pretty intense wildfire. And at the time, their policy was they did not put forth any effort to stop wildfires because it is a natural process, and they needed to just let it be a natural process and do its thing until months and months go. I mean, it was like decimating the whole park. And so they finally were like, I guess maybe we should step in because I don't think this thing's going to stop burning. Um, and and that really impacted me because there was, like, daily on the news you could see animals running from the fire, trying to, like mama bears with her cubs in the middle of a freeway, not knowing where to go, just like, and all of those images really impacted me, I feel like, to realize that us humans, and I'll get a little religious here because, I have, grew up in the church. We were told in the Bible, it says we were created or told to be the stewards of the land, to take care of the land and the animals, right? And I feel like we do the opposite, right? Unfortunately, everything we do affects wildlife negatively for the most part, right? Building houses, our vehicles, like, you know, I'll just run to the store, and I'll see a dead raccoon, 3 or 4 dead raccoons on the freeway, and it breaks my heart. And all because, a bunch of millionaires decided we needed to hustle constantly to make enough money to, you know. So I guess that's my take. I think that we do a terrible job of stewarding this earth, and I would like us all to try to do better at that and take care of the animals. Drive a little bit slower. Be aware of your activity and how it impacts all of the things around you, not just your neighbors.
Absolutely. I fully agree. I fully agree. I am a softie when it comes to animals. Uh, and it really doesn't matter what animal.
How's that new kitty of
Oh, he's
yours
he's he's
coming?
great. Yeah, for the listeners out there, I recently, as of like a little over a week ago, rescued a kitten, an 18 week old. There we go, kitten.
There
Uh,
you go.
and I named him Peak, which is very suiting for him. He's a very adventurous cat.
Yeah.
Um, so now I have 2 cats. He's doing great. He's fully settled in. He's playing with Chunk, which is my older cat, and plays with the dogs that my parents have, and it's lovely. I definitely can't complain. I hear him meddling around somewhere over there. He's got a little bell on his collar,
Somewhere.
so I always know where he's at. But yeah, he's doing great. But I'm a huge softy for animals, and it doesn't matter what
For
animal
animals.
it is. I have a dream to buy land and have like a lot of land and have some chickens and some goats, and you know I'm sure my girlfriend will also want some type of animal. I'm sure my mom will
Oh
beg me
yeah.
to get like Highland cows or something, which I'm not gonna do, but it'd be kind of cool. I'm not gonna.
They
They're
are
cool.
cool.
I just don't have the time for that. Um,
Yeah, cows are a lot of work.
exactly. But yeah, it's like anytime I go outside, I'm not going out there 100% for just myself. I'm going out there to experience nature and the wildlife and observe
Correct.
the creatures and critters that live amongst us out in the trees, on the trails. And I fully agree with you in the fact that we don't do a great job of stewarding our environment, our land, our public places. Like I could go on a massive list, but at the top of that list is animals and like the lands that they live on.
Yeah,
We're constantly taking down ecosystems of trees and forests to build new condos and shopping centers. And I'm
AI data
yes,
centers.
that is a huge one right now. I'm so exhausted by capitalism at this point, and
Same.
it's extremely frustrating to drive through town where I live and see parts of areas that were forested and recently have been deforested to build a new apartment complex or build a new shopping center or a new God, dude, my area has like 100 car washes within like a 4 mile radius. It's insane. Like
Yikes.
it's just like it's devastating to the planet. It's devastating to the animals, and it breaks my heart. There was one time that I accidentally hit a cat while I was driving. It was actually I was driving to my parents for Thanksgiving, I believe. It was completely unavoidable. I slammed on my
Of course,
brakes,
yeah.
swerved into the other lane, and still got it. And I bawled for days. I bawled my eyes out,
Of course you did, yeah.
and like I still like have
Think
I
about
I
it
have
and
flashbacks of it when I'm driving, and like I'll just like suddenly slam on the brake,
oh,
and it's like I didn't. There wasn't a
right.
cat there, but like some reason my brain just showed it
Right.
to me. Um, and so yeah,
I hit a deer once. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's
it,
it's an impactful
it
experience.
is. It really is. And so I guess I'll leave this principle with just be kind to the creatures and critters around you. It doesn't matter if it's an animal, an insect, a bug, an anything you see. Like these principles exist to help them survive. They're not for us to take
Yeah,
advantage of and
exactly. And
abuse.
our behavior impacts them greatly. And so just, think twice about the things you do.
Exactly. And then the last principle before we get on to some other topics. I know we had one plan for before we jumped into the principles, and then I just kind of got into the flow. So we'll touch on that after this.
All good.
Um,
Yep, same. That's
the
good.
the seventh and last principle is be considerate of others. Be considerate of other visitors more so. And so, like we just talked about with respecting wildlife, you should also respect other people on the trail.
Yeah, I think that sometime, I mean, I try to be like gracious and like, but I do often forget like who right away. I'm always forgetting who's, yeah. And I just figure like if I'm going up, I'm exhausted. I want to take a break. So if you're coming down, go past me. But I see, I don't even know, but I believe it's the opposite for right away. And so often people will stop for me and wait for me. And I'm like, no, I'm good.
Please go past.
Let me take a break.
Yeah, I don't want to keep walking at your pace.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's and I think just beyond just proper trail etiquette, like if you need to pull over, let people pass you, or if somebody's coming towards you and the trail's very narrow, like step off a little bit so they can, comfortably walk past. But beyond that,
Yeah, exactly. Or with mountain bikes, there's a lot of trails that we share with mountain bikers or horseback people on horseback, and understanding the right of way and making sure that you're following that. And of course, most people, not everybody, most people understand and are um, courteous of mistakes. We all either don't see someone until the very last second, you know, or taking a picture or paying attention to something that we might miss. But do your best to be courteous of all living things when you're out on the trail.
absolutely, and I think that definitely 1000% extends to when you're camping because if I have to hear another person blasting Beyonce on a speaker until 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the wilderness, I'm going to lose my mind. I
Gotta go
I will
postal.
go postal. Like, and
Yeah, no, and I was gonna say, like, that's the other thing about being courteous. That whole taking speakers on hikes with you, like, and some people say, "Oh, I do it to scare away the animals." And well, yeah, we have bears in our area. That's not going to
no,
help. That's not going to help you, and it just irritates
yeah,
everybody else. Like,
yeah. Like, I don't get so bothered when it's a bike. Like if somebody's on a bike doing it, because usually they're going way faster than I am, so they're very much like it's annoying in that split second that they're next to you, and then it's out of sight after that.
yeah,
But
and then it's
but
gone.
there
Yeah,
very often is if I'm out on one of the more popular trails like the towpath or something, there would be somebody with a big Bluetooth speaker blasting whatever they want to listen to, and it's like, bro, headphones aren't that
yeah,
expensive. Like you can go buy a pair of wired
yeah.
headphones for five
Exactly,
dollars. Like
exactly.
you get the same effect, and honestly it's a
Yeah,
little bit more personal if you have it in your headphones. You're in your own little world. I don't want to be in your world. I came out here to get
exactly.
into my own little world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a national park not too far from here. It's southern Monterey County is the next county up from me, and it's where I raise my children. And Pinnacles National Park is right there, and it actually became a park. It was not a park when my kids were younger, so but it's become a park in the last 15 years maybe or so. But
Hmm.
it is in a very rural area, so it's a large percentage of Hispanic population that works in the fields, right? In fact, a lot of them might not even speak English. And these are the kids that I taught when I taught high school in that area. But when I go hiking up there, I will often see young adults. They're either probably ranging from like 16 to like 25 or something like that. And so many of them have speakers. And so I do feel like my point being, this just goes back to education, right? I'm so glad that they're out there experiencing nature. Like a lot of these kids, their parents are so busy just trying to make ends meet and work their tails off from sun up to sundown that they don't get the opportunity to take them to the beach or take them out to the mountains. And so thank God they have that access that's fairly close to them, but nobody's teaching them how to behave in that space, respectfully. So,
I wish there were more after school programs that were outdoors based. Like more okay, let
yeah,
me rephrase that because a lot of after school programs are outside stuff, but like more
right.
nature outdoors based. Like
Yeah, nature
yeah,
focused.
yeah, I
Yes.
think that would be super
Yeah, yeah.
helpful.
That's why my daughter and I created Wolf and Willow so that we could get kids outside, connected to the healing qualities of nature, and also to educate them on how to interact.
I
Yeah,
love that. I love that so much.
Worthwhile pursuit, in my opinion.
Absolutely. 100%. So, there was a section of the show that we were going to open up with before diving in, and it was fails that we've had. And I know
Yes.
you have one you were pretty keen to talk about. And so that made me think a bit
Sure.
hard about a fail that I might have had. And I have one, but I'm actually
Hmm.
been looking forward to hearing about your tent situation.
Okay. Yeah. So I am going to be going on my very first backpacking trip. I'm going to hike Channel Islands National Park, which is a little chain of islands off the coast, kind of near where I grew up, Ventura County. Um, and because it's my very first backpacking trip, like I have the backpack because I use that backpack when I travel internationally, right? So I've got a nice big Osprey that's perfect for backpacking. But like all of my camping material stuff um, is like my tent is a 6-person tent, right? Because I take dogs and children, and like at least in the past, right? And so now I'm transitioning to just me or me and my partner. But I don't have a tent. I don't have a like just a 1 or 2 person tent. Now my partner has a tent. He probably would just let me borrow his, but you know, I have some strong opinions about borrowing people's stuff, and especially expensive stuff like tents, and I would feel horrible if I damaged it. And so I was on the hunt to try to get my own tent, and of course, single mom on a budget, uh, was kind of doing some digging and research and seeing if I could find a cheaper. I don't want to spend $200-300 at REI. I just want something that I might only use once. And I was visiting my friend about a month or so ago, and she was going on and on about Timu and how great deals they have and all of this. So I ended up on Timu and I found this tent, and it was a 2 person tent, and I'm like, oh, it's only $25. Like, if it doesn't work out, it's only $25, right? And while it finally came, and these things take forever because they're being shipped from like China or who knows where, right? Took forever to come. And the thing, while I feel like it probably would be perfect, it is the way it's shaped, it's just a huge circle. Like, there's just no way I would be able to put it in my backpack. Like, even the poles are like almost like a hula hoop, plastic hula hoop. It's all just circle. I don't even know.
That
So there's no way I would be able to put it in my backpack. It's not at all going to work. I should have known that Timu tent was not gonna be a smart purchase.
I'm not gonna
But
ridicule you, but nothing good comes from
it's
Timu.
probably just gonna go to my granddaughter for her birthday. Maybe it's perfect for a toddler. It's a toddler tent now instead of a Timu tent.
Exactly. Hey, at least you're upcycling it in some type of way, you know?
Exactly. Yes, I will. I will still use it.
I think maybe that'll
I'm
be
sure the
another.
4-year-old will destroy it in a month or so. But
Oh yeah. I feel like that might be another an episode in the future. Like platforms that we consistently shop at that aren't great.
oh, that messes with our
Yeah.
environment.
So like
Yeah, because it
Sheen,
just turns to waste.
Timu,
I
stuff like that.
absolutely agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I usually don't shop at those places. I'm a thrift store queen. Like, let me reuse, recycle.
I'll have to put it in my reminders. I'll send you some tents that I have either like I already have, or that I've been looking at
Hmm.
that are not going to break the bank. That might be super helpful for you. Um,
Awesome. That would be very helpful. I appreciate it.
of course, of course. Um, my fail very much goes to principle one uh, of Leave No Trace principles, which is plan ahead and prepare.
Not planning.
And so it was 3 years ago, or yeah, it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I got my current car, uh, and I like 2 weeks after I got it, I took it on a trip. And so when I got this car, my only thing was that it needed to be 4-wheel drive, which it's not because they lied, uh, and that it needed to have Apple CarPlay. And so at least it has CarPlay.
Okay.
So not realizing that it didn't have 4-wheel drive, I bought this car in December. It also has broken AC. It's had broken AC since I bought it, and I didn't know because I bought it in December. I'm not going to test the AC out
No,
in
no,
December.
no. Of course not. Yeah.
I live in Ohio. Like it's already negative outside. Um,
Oh no.
so I decided to go to a trip, and my one of my favorite places to go that's not terribly far. It's like a 3.5 hour drive away. Is Allegheny National Forest or Allegheny Reservoir.
Okay.
And so this was actually my first time going out there. So I'd never been out there before, and I was going to car camp, and I had the gear that I needed for the most part. Um, I had the gear that I needed to be comfortable existing. I didn't have the gear to get me unstuck, and that's the problem. So I drive out there,
Oh
and I
no.
find a camp spot on a Forest Service road. Uh, Out there, Forest Service roads are dirt. They're not plowed in the wintertime. I did not know that. Also, didn't know
Hmm.
just how high up
Yeah.
I was going to be in the mountains and how much snow there was going to be. I also didn't think there was going to be snow.
Okay.
So I get out
Oh
there. I'm
no.
doing fine.
All kinds of planning going.
Yeah, exactly. I get out there. I get stuck once. Somebody helps me out, right? That's fine. Everything's kosher. I get out. I find my spot, a nice little like ridge point where like I can see the reservoir and the other mountains through like a gap of trees.
Ooh,
It was
pretty.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll send you the picture later. I could probably put it up in the edit post so people can see it on YouTube. Uh, Basically,
yeah.
I find my
Totally.
spot, and then a person pulls up behind me and was like taking pictures and stuff. So we connect and we chit chat. Her name is Mia. Uh, and then we chit chat back and forth, whatever, so on and so forth. And then she goes on her way. Um, and I spend there. I make my cup of coffee, like just chill out, enjoy making food in the snow. Um, I decided to venture out to a different campsite, and this was as the sun was setting. So we were like 30 minutes away from dusk or actually being completely dark.
Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so I go a little ways down the road, and she's stuck, like super stuck. Uh,
Oh, poor Mia.
she I stopped and I tried to help her as best I could, and I couldn't make it anywhere. And mind you, there was no cell service, zero, zilch, nada.
Yeah.
Phone was in SOS mode, uh, which at that point, iPhone didn't have satellite messaging, so there was nothing I could do. Um, I
There was nothing you could do.
I
Yeah.
decide to. I knew that there was a brewery just probably like 3 miles down the Forest Service Road back into like the main town area. I was like, all right,
Okay.
I will go there and see if somebody can call like a tow truck or something, or like somebody can call for some help.
Yeah.
So you're not,
Mechanic, get you
yeah,
some
because
help.
she
Yeah.
wasn't prepared to stay overnight. I make it
Yeah.
maybe like a quarter mile away, and I get stuck, and I got stuck, and
Oh
I spent three
no.
hours stuck. And I had like
Oh
a dinky
no.
plastic shovel that broke after like 30 minutes. Um, I had phone battery, but I didn't have a whole lot of gas. I think I had like
Oh no.
a little more than a quarter tank, which
Yeah.
if I wasn't getting stuck wouldn't have been
Yeah.
a
That.
problem. Um,
Yeah. Exactly.
so I spent 3 hours stuck. Somehow I managed to get myself unstuck, and basically all it was just flooring it and cutting my steering wheel as much as I could back and forth until my car started to move. And it worked. It worked
Awesome.
miraculously. I ended up making it to that brewery. And at that point, I was so far from her that I didn't go back because I was worried I was going to get stuck again. So I just sat and waited. I sat at,
Run, yeah, run out of gas
yeah.
or
So
yeah.
I sat at the brewery, and I definitely had a fair amount of beers. Um, and then I would say maybe after like an hour and a half of sitting up there warming up and like drinking beers, she walks in. And apparently her friends
Nice.
came and got her. And then we ended up caravanning
Rescued
back
her.
to like a different spot along the water, and we just like car camped kind of close to each other in that parking lot.
Oh, fun.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that was my first car camping experience as somebody that had never done that before. Uh, was
Fun.
something I'll never
Necessity is the
forget.
mother of invention, as they say.
Yes, yes. Uh, Man, I think about that experience fondly, but I also look back at it with like the hindsight of like I could have been more prepared. I could
Yeah.
have done more.
My first my first individual car camping thing, I had one of a little scare because it was that whole Colorado trip, and on the way back, um, I ended up like figuring I was just going to try to drive straight through for like 10 hours. And after like five, I was like, I'm exhausted. I'm starting to kind of fall asleep. I need to stop and get some rest. And I ended up stopping at a truck stop. And it's funny. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a writer, and I kind of was in this moment, like afterwards, kind of was thinking to myself, this would be such a really good title for a book, because it was such a bad decision that I made was trying to stay at this place. And so it was just, it was, I got there probably at like 11 or so, maybe 10. I don't know. There was a restaurant that was still open, and I ended up getting curry at the restaurant there. So I always tell people, don't ever eat truck stop curry. Like that's a bad move. Trust me. um, but so, and I was all by myself in my car at this truck stop. There was definitely some interesting truckers around, and as a female, I definitely started to kind of not feel safe. And so I just probably around 2, 3 in the morning was like, I know it's dark out there, but you got a little bit of rest. Let's leave. Trust that intuition.
Always, always, especially
Be
at
safe. Yeah,
sketchy
for sure.
truck stops as a solo female
Truck stops.
traveler. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Trust your gut.
So before we wrap up, there is one question that I think is really important to the overall topic of this episode, which is, why is this so hard for common people to understand when it comes to leave no trace principles?
I do think that again, it goes back to that education, right? There are so many people that, well, and also not just education, but the influx of social media, right? So people geotagging and go do this hike and go to this place and look at this amazing place. And so people who just are like scrolling or consuming this information and maybe already don't have any idea about hiking, or right, and they're just like, oh, I want to go see that. They might not be hikers, but just, oh, that's a pretty waterfall, right? So I think that's part of it. So I guess this is my plea to all of you social media influencer people. Like, if you're geotagging places and telling people to go there, maybe put a little blurb at the bottom about leave no trace, so that people are educated and they take care of our places, because there's nothing worse than having hordes of people go see a place and leave trash and ruin it, which is happening with all of the social media stuff. So
Absolutely. I can't really add anything more to that just because you nailed it right on the head, Like if you're gonna be an influencer, you're gonna try to build a social media following and you're gonna geotag somewhere, try to in that post include even the most basic of, leave no trace principles to instill in your audience that you gotta leave the place better than you found it.
yeah, amen, Tyler.
And so with that, we're we're at the end of at the end of the episode, and I think we made it here with very minimal technical difficulties, which is a plus.
Yay.
Um, I do again want to take a second to thank our presenting sponsors, Take a Hike Resale Shop and Open Trail Collective. Man, my chest is like, what are you trying to do right now? So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you to our presenting sponsors for helping us keep the lights on for the show. And thank you, Becca, as always,
Yes,
for
thank
joining
you.
me in this episode. As I mean, you kind of have to. So,
Always a pleasure, Tyler. Always enjoy hanging out with you, and appreciate the sponsors for helping us out. And maybe I need to check out their website and look for my tent.
ooh, yeah, that would be awesome, actually. But yeah, so that's where we'll leave it.
All right. Awesome.
So thank you guys for
Peace
listening,
out.
and we'll talk to you guys soon. Hopefully, we'll be on a more regular upload cadence going forward.
Yes.
Awesome. See you guys later.